Started nearly 50 years ago as a 193-page booklet of stapled newsprint about sexual and reproductive health care, first called Women and Their Bodies, but it became much more, translated into more than 30 languages, selling more than 4 million copies worldwide under the now well-known title, Our Bodies, Ourselves, A Feminist Guide. For many women, it was their only resource on once taboo issues like sexual autonomy, masturbation, postpartum struggles, and even birth control. Now the group behind it is taking Our Bodies, Ourselves online, partnering with Suffolk University's Center for Women's Health and Human Rights to create a new digital platform for up-to-date information about women's health, sexuality, and well-being ahead of the 50th anniversary next year. Judy Norsigian is a co-founder and executive director of Our Bodies, Ourselves, the organization. She's also co-author of all 10 editions of Our Bodies, Ourselves, the book. Nice to see you. Thanks for being here, and congratulations.
Pleasure to join you.
She joins me along with Diana Namumbejja Abwoye. How close is that?
Good.
You're a nice person. A registered nurse and a member of the organization's board of directors who helped bring the book to women in Uganda. Diana, thanks for being here, too. What was the genesis of this? How did this all start, Judy?
It all grew out of a women's liberation conference that was held at Emmanuel College in 1969. The workshop was electrifying for some of the women there, and they decided to continue meeting. The first project was to create a list of good doctors in the area, and they quickly realized that they weren't well enough informed about their bodies, about all kinds of basic issues, to decide what was good medical care and what wasn't. And so they embarked upon this process of self-education.
Was there anything even remotely like this before?
No. You have to understand, back then, 98% of all OBGYNs were men. They were largely steeped in a very sexist culture. There was a lot of misogyny, sexism, condescension, and women were just...
You talking about now or then,
I'm talking about back then. There's some now, but listen, it was huge. Yeah. And women were really struggling with trying to get good information, being patted on the head like, don't bother yourself. And this effort to educate ourselves was crucially important. And in the beginning, there wasn't an idea to produce a book. There were some community courses, little news. They mimeographed, portions of the papers they were writing and sharing with one another. And the book grew out of that. And as you know, 9 editions later from that point is this 2011 edition.
And you talked about abortion. It was 3+ years before it was even constitutionally protected under Roe v. Wade, correct?
Absolutely.
Illegal at the time.
We were working also with many other groups to think about how to legalize abortion.
When did you first come upon Our Bodies, Ourselves?
This was in 2011. I had a woman, a friend of mine, who I asked a question about tampons, and she was very amazed that I had no idea. Well, coming from Uganda, we obviously didn't have discussions about sexual health, menstruation, pregnancy, and abortion. So when I came to this country, I had no idea what a tampon is or a pap smear. So right at BU, when we had the 40th anniversary celebration of Our Bodies, Ourselves, she and a friend of hers took me to this celebration, and she bought me a book as a birthday gift for that year. And I read this book and was very fascinated.
Do you remember what you felt like when you read it for the first time?
Oh my goodness, I kept on opening the pages and pages and wondering how someone could possibly have this information written down, because I had never seen such a thing before.
You said 2011, I think you were saying. What was the state of women's rights, women's health care in Uganda then as compared to 1970 when these women came together to put this all together?
Well, I think nothing has changed between 1970 and now, or rather 2011. And, I think they don't have any advocacy, they don't have this information written. And as a matter of fact, we don't discuss these ideas in public.
What kind of reaction have you gotten back home to this book? I know you've translated it, chapters and that. What kind of reaction have you gotten from women in Uganda?
So when I translated this book and published it, the women in Uganda individually were very appreciative. They could not believe what was in these books. Some organizations have decided not to align themselves with my translation because it's discussing sexuality, sex, and abortions.
Judy, when you were all together, both at this thrilling event and then when you decided to start doing a book, when I'm lucky enough to talk to somebody who changed the world, which you and your colleagues did. I always wonder, at that time, did anybody have an inkling about what the potential impact of this would be?
I think a few of the women did. I don't think we then thought that in 2012 the National Library of Congress would name it as one of 88 books that shaped America. And I also didn't appreciate just how much it would influence men as well. So many men have written to us over the years, appreciating how important this information is to be a good partner to a woman they love. And I can tell you story after story of how women learned something crucial, not because they discovered the book, but because their husband or their boyfriend gave them the book. Sometimes it's something as simple as, dysmenorrhea, painful periods, and you don't know what to do, and somebody comes and points it out to you. Even the article in the Globe recently registered a letter from a woman who was 26 years ago dealing with a very complicated PID, pelvic inflammatory disease condition, and she described in detail how reading the book actually saved her life. And those kinds of stories are so meaningful to us.
So, but 50 years out, we have Roe v. Wade at great risk, I think would argue, and even in states and in many states, you have a right to an abortion, but access is virtually non-existent. We have a president credibly accused of sexual assault. We have the administration dramatically cutting back on women's access to health care and to information. So what's your reaction to all that a half century after you changed things like you and your colleagues did?
We're facing a grim reality, and I have to admit, I never would have dreamed 40, 50 years ago we would be in this situation. I think for many people I meet of all ages who experience this presidency as a nightmare, they are in some cases traumatized and find it hard to think about what to do next. I know more and more people I'm meeting are going to be working on changing what happens with the election next year. It isn't just the attack on women, it's the attack on decency. It's the attack on so many of us. And one of the things that we try to do in our own little corner is to make sure that information as we know it stays accurate and informative. And back then there was nothing out there. Now there's a lot of misinformation on the internet. So something like Our Bodies, Our Cells is still badly needed. And now that Suffolk University is doing this wonderful project called Our Bodies, Our Cells Today, this kind of information will be available online starting sometime next year.
Starting next year?
Yes.
All of it. And then obviously updated to meet people's needs.
They will begin with certain sections and keep adding. And it's just, for me, to see this opportunity. And many of our partners from around the country and the world will be participating.
You know, I wanted to suggest that the difficulties and obstacles some women face are not just a function of Trump. Poor women in this country, overwhelming numbers of women of color who depend upon Medicaid, for example, for health care, are subject to the Hyde Amendment that long precedes Donald Trump, which limits, does not allow federal funds to be used for abortion. So the need of poor women and women of color in particular is greater than practically ever, is it not?
Yes, it is. And I would agree on that. I think as a woman of color, I really feel like the need for this resource is, is important amongst women of color and those minority women, but also the fact that they face so many challenges that will need such information, but also funding for them to get access to health care is a great need at this day and time.
So the next step is to continue to get education out. Congratulations to both of you. It's great to see you, and lots of luck in the future.
Good to see you again. Thanks a lot.
Diana, it's a pleasure. Judy,
congratulations.
It's incredible what you did. For more information, head to ourbodiesourselves.org.